to lesson number 15. So today I'm going to be talking about two things. I'm going to be talking about scale degrees, so what all the notes of the scales are called, their technical terms. This is helpful when you're doing a little bit of harmony or composing music for yourself. And the other thing I'm going to be teaching you on is a little bit to do with what these have to, like the functions these things have. So I'll draw out the chords and whatnot and explain a little bit about it. Okay, so let's get right into it. So, scale degrees, what are they? Well, say you have a C major scale, and it goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? That's a scale. Now, what is the first note of the scale? C, right? Because on the C major scale, the first note is, that's C. So that is the tonic. The tonic is always the first note of the scale. Now let's use another example. Say we want to go to G major. Okay, let's go over G major. Now what's the first note of the scale? G. So what is G? The tonic. You're like, what? Why is C the tonic and G the tonic? Well, in G major, G is the tonic because it's the first note. In C major, C is the tonic because it's the first note. So depending on what scale you're in, the letters change. So all a tonic or a scale degree is it's saying that whatever the first note is in the scale is called a tonic because it has a purpose. And I'll get to that in a minute. So when we do scale degrees, we write them in Roman numerals. Now with a major mode, they follow this pattern. So Roman numeral 1, that's for tonic. Now look how it's in a capital 1, I. That's because it's a major. Now these ones are minors right here. Now I'm not going to explain why that is yet, but just think of it this way to start off with. These ones that are major here, those are the main core important basic chords or scale degrees right now. So tonic, or the 1, so tonic, that's what it's called. It is the most important central point of the entire scale. The whole tonal system of this whole thing that's being built, the major minor tonality, it's all being built so that everything's pulling towards the tonic all the time. It's always going to the tonic. Everything, the whole goal is to start at the tonic. Sometimes it doesn't have to. Go in the tonic, play around, go into this thing where it sounds all scary, and you're like, ah, going to the creepy forest, and then want to go back to the tonic, and then rest in the tonic. Think of the tonic as like your home or your house. You're going to go on a little adventure and go around and all these little other things, and then you're going to be like, ah, I want to go home, and always the piece ends on the tonic. Almost always. Okay, so that's a tonic. Now, I'm just going to give you the names of the next ones here. So, the second one is called the supertonic. So it's tonic, supertonic. That's pretty easy, right? Now, supertonic, it doesn't mean that it's any better than the tonic. That's not what it means at all. So it's just called the supertonic. Mediant. Okay, mediant. That's the third. So the third is the mediant. Now the fourth, now these letters here that I've put, this is just what key they'd be if they were in the C major scale. But if you change this to the G major scale, that would be G, A, B, C, D, or whatever, right? I would just keep going on. So these notes in the middle change. But I'm just giving you an example here that this would be the C major scale. Okay, so the fourth note in the C major scale is F. So the fourth scale degree is called the subdominant. Now the reason why I have these two things here is to show that these ones are more powerful. So the subdominant and the dominant. So that's the 4 chord and the 5 chord, or the 4th scale degree and the 5th scale degree. Now the 4th is the subdominant and the 5th is the dominant. Now the dominant is the second strongest note of the entire thing. What's the first? The tonic. So the dominant is the second strongest. Now, if you wanted to relate this to the whole house thing, you could be in the tonic, dun 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 dun, and then you're going through the forest and everything's all, not very catering and kind of dangerous and it sounds spooky. And then you get to the dominant, which could be some shelter or a shack or a cave or something. And you have a little fire and you're kind of cozy. But when you're in that cozy, when you're in that place and you remember how great your house is compared to this, and you want to go, oh, I just want to go back to my house. So that's sort of what a dominance is like. It pulls you back to the tonic, but it's also so strong enough that you could stay there yourself. Okay. Now, if you remember way back when I did the circle of fifths, do you remember that the F was on the left side of the C major and the G was on the right side? G major is on the right next to C major, and F is on that. And so if you took C and you put it there, look, you have the subdominant and the dominant, and that's partly can explain why those two are so strong, because they're closely related keys, and that's why it's so easy to jump to those ones. Okay. So, a subdominant and a dominant. Now, the best way to get a feel for how these sound is to go into a C major scale and then play an F. And then it sort of will give you an idea of what an F would sound like in a C major scale. Then play the C again and then play a D. How does that D make you feel? How does it feel when you play that D? Play the G. How does the G feel? Does it feel solid? Play the B. What does the B feel like? What does the A feel like? That's the best way, because I can't really tell you how they feel. I have my own sense, but you have your own sense too. Just like when I hear a piece, you hear a piece, you might feel differently than I do when I hear it. We might have the same general sense, but it could be a little bit different. Okay, so F is the subdominant, G is the dominant. Now A, or I should say the sixth. The sixth is the submediant. So the dominant is 5, subdominant is 4. So the sixth is the submediant. Now look at this. Mediant, submediant, subdominant, dominant. Okay, so submediant, mediant, subdominant, dominant. So, okay. What the pattern goes, it's like mediant. So it's like without the sub, with the sub, without the sub, with the sub. Just like, make up your mind. Okay. Okay, so the submediant goes with 6. Now, the leading tone is the 7th one. Now, it's also referred to as the leading note. Leading tone and leading note are interchangeable. Either one is correct. You can use whatever you want. You can use leading tone or leading note. It doesn't really matter. Now, the basic function of the leading tone is to pull you back towards the tonic. Out of every single note in this entire thing, the leading tone is the weakest. So this is the weakest. So it's like you're the furthest away from the tonic, and you just want to get back to the tonic so bad. Okay? It would be like, say you're on an island and then this like tidal wave of volcano lava just goes blah, and you're like, I want to be home right now. Yeah, that'd be leading tone. It pulls you back to wanting to go back to your house and watch some of Andrew's how to play piano lessons on your computer. Okay. Anyway, so that's leading tone. So 1 is tonic, submediant, 2 is supertonic, 3 is mediant, 4 is subdominant, 5 is dominant, 6 is submediant, and 7 is leading tone. Okay, so that concludes this section. I'll show you the next section. Now, the next section I'm going to talk about is the general direction that all music flows in. Now, all the scale degree that I was talking about, all those things is when you see 1, it means the tonic is your note. Now, what we can do whenever what we want to do is if we just play the 1 note for the tonic, it gets kind of boring if we only have 1 note, right? The C. So what we do is we add 2 notes on top of those, or more, to add a chord. So that's what we call a chord, would be C, E, and G, which I'm sure you know by this point. So it makes it sound, pleasant to the ear. And of course we have inversions. Now those can be written out in other ways. I'll probably show that too. But to start off with, when we say a 1 chord, what is that? Well, if you're in C major, that's C, E, and G, which would be written somewhat like this. Like that. C, E, G, with the C on the bottom. The C has to be the bottom note, if you have it written like that. Okay? Now, when we see the 4, what does that imply? Well, what's the 4th note in C major? F. So that would be F, A, C. So that is the 4 chord. Now, I have a B here, so that is the 5th. So that's the dominant. So that would be a G, B, D. Now, if you notice here, I have 5, or I have this thing right here. It's called a 5, and that's a 7 there. Kind of looks more like a square holding it in, but that's supposed to be a 7. Now, the 7 it's sort of like, you can make any chord a 5-7, or a 7 chord. You can make a 1-7 or whatever. All you're doing is adding an extra note onto it. So you're going G, B, D. Now if you count up, G, and there's a note in between, that's A, that's B. So that's the 3rd note on the scale there, so that's called the 3rd. And this is the 5th note on the scale, in the chord I guess you would call it. And that is the 5th. So by adding another note up here, it's adding the 7th note. So that would be an F. I'm going to put it in brackets because it's optional whether you want to do the 5-7 or the 5. And then you go back to C. Whoops, what am I thinking? Okay, you go back to the 1 chord, which is the C chord. Now, okay, you're like, okay, so where are you going with this, Andrew? Well, this is extremely simplified. Let me just say that, extremely simplified. But this is the general way that music flows. It starts off in the tonic, which is the 1. So this is something called the tonic function, or whatever you want to call it. You can name it hippity hoppity boo for that matter. Hippity hoppity boo. Okay, so that's tonic, the tonic function chord, or whatever you want to name it. This X here. This represents basically it's sort of like the indeterminate chord. You can use a whole bunch of different ones. You don't just need to use 4, you can use anything. Like it can be huge or small. So that would be the next one you do. So I just put 4 because it's a very basic, what is it called? Can't remember now. Can't remember the name of it. It's like a substitute, or oh, I remember the name of it. It's called a predominant function chord. Good old stuff. So this is helping me remember what I learned back in the day. Anyway, it's probably better used with quotation marks, because it's not actually like a 10 chord or whatever. It's not like the 10th, because that doesn't exist. Okay, but so x is just like a variable, kind of like algebra. X equals 7. Okay, anyway. So x. So it's 4. So just for now, let's just say that. So it's the predominant function chord. Now, this is the dominant function chord, because 5 is the dominant. So this leads back to the tonic. So the dominant pulls back to the tonic. So the tonic moves along to predominant function chord. This can actually be completely, you don't even have to do this actually. It's optional. Then you could just jump right into the dominant function chord and then go to there. So you have the option of just doing this. Here, I'm going to play tonic, so the 1. Okay, now I'm just going to I'm going to go right into my predominant function, which is the 4. Okay, now I'm just going to hit the dominant function, which is the 5. Okay, and now C, which is the 1 on the far sides of the tonic, or the N. So I'll play that again. So notice how short that was. I just went dun 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 dun. Now does it have to be that short for each thing? No. I could go on and play this for like half an hour. Now I'm not going to do that, don't worry. You could do that for half an hour, you could do that, 20 minutes, whatever. Change it up, whatever you want to do. And then you just eventually get back to that. So you can expand this to however big you want it to be. You can change chords. Like, you can do more than just 1 4 chord. You could go to a 6 chord and a 3 chord and whatever. Or whatever you want to do. Now, another really good chord to get to 5, because you notice how that sounded pretty good, right? Now 4 goes to a 5 pretty well, but another one that really goes well to it is called a 2-7. Now what a 2-7 would be the second note of the C, so that'd be what, C to D, so it'd be D, F, A, and then C again. So go D, F, A, and then C, because there's a 7 there, so that's a 4-note chord. So if I play that D, I can go like this. Where am I? Okay. Okay, so say I'm on a C. This is a 4 chord, by the way. Then I go to... And then I can go to the G. And then... But notice how this goes quite well. If I do this... The 2-7 to the 5 to the 1. Now, do you want to hear the 5-7? So that would be this one here with the F. Okay, so listen to this one. So I'm going 2-7. Now I'm going to go to a 5-7. So it's this. So see how that sounds more like rich and full? I'm changing the bottom note here. So basically the combinations are endless. Now it's up to you how you want to play around with that. You can change notes around and I'll probably do a more advanced thing on it. But yeah. Now another thing I want to show you. Okay, so that's how that works. Sort of, that's the chart, and that's how you can use your compositions. You can do this kind of thing. Okay, let's stop that there. This little section here is on inversions. So, how to read Roman numerals, and how to, because as we talked about before, this is the 1 or the tonic. Now, what happens if you want to put the tonic in another inversion? So, this would be the tonic normally, C, E, G. Now, say you wanted this inversion, where the E is on the bottom, the G, and then the C. Okay, well, then you'd write a 6 beside it, so it'd be a 1-6. Now, if you want it with, 2, the C and the G on the top, or the C and the E on the top and the G down here, you'd write a 6-4, so it's a 1-6-4. Now, this is the technical way of doing it. It's a 1, 1-6, 1-6-4. So it's it's the root position, first inversion, second inversion. So here's the 1, here's the 1-6, here's the 1-6-4, and here's the 1 again. Okay? Now, why did I write these things in the brackets here? These are the technical terms, like the super technical, if you wanted to get really technical. This is technically a 1-5-3. This is technically a 1-6-3, and this is technically a 1-6-4, but they just call it a 1-6-4 because that's a 1-6, so you can't call both of them 1-6s. Now, where do they get the numbers from? Well, it's actually the distance of the interval between it. So from C to G, that's a third. From C to G, from C to E is a third. C to G is a fifth. So it's a 3 and a fifth. Now here, there's a 3, so it goes E to G, that's a third, and E to C is a sixth. That's how that works. Try it out on your piano. Okay, and here, 6/4. So from G to C is a fourth, and G to E is a sixth, and that's where they get the numbers from. Cool, huh? Okay, so that's those intervals. Now I talked about the 6 and the 6/4. Now when we're dealing with 7 chords, because there's 4 notes, they have 4 different patterns instead of 3 different patterns. Now this is really easy if you look at it this way. It goes 5/7. Now the thing is, it doesn't have to be a 5. 5/7 is just one of the more common ones. You could use a 2 if you want, and this could all be 2, whatever. Or it could be a 1/7 and a 1/6/5 and a 1 whatever. That doesn't matter. I just put 5 for just no reason. Just because I felt like it. Okay, so there's 7, 6/5, 4/3, 2. So notice how it goes down in order. 7, 6/5, 4/3, 2. So if you just remember it this way, 7 for the first one, and it's all in line. 6/5, 4/3, 2. Okay? So it's 7, 6/5, 4/3, 2. Now technically it's actually called a 4/2, but you can also get away with just calling it a 2. So that's whatever happens when you're dealing with 7th chords, or chords with 4 notes, like this. That's a 7, 6/5, 4/3, 2. And then back to 7. So those are the different inversions. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next lesson. Take care. Bye-bye.